A warm welcome to all our viewers to our series, Natural Medicine. I was recently wondering if there is a common denominator between knee pain, hip pain, back pain, neck pain, or maybe even a headache at one point or another. And so I asked myself, isn't there a common denominator? And why am I asking myself the question? Because I've been infiltrated a bit by the scientific findings of a movement scientist who honours us again and again. And I'm sure he has a lot to say on the topic today, which is why I've invited him. So stay tuned. And here we are again, and now I may introduce you to my guest, namely Karl Müller from the Karl company. Welcome. Dear Karl, and thank you for coming back and explaining to us once more the connections between neck, back pain, hip pain, knee pain, all the way down. What is the common denominator? And why do we have a lot more problems today than we used to? Yeah, dear Alexander, there is even more to that. It's not just about the orthopedic problems, but also about the organs. They also react to the same denominator. Yeah, to the same. And this same denominator, I'll tell you now, it's the feet. They are a very important key to our overall health. When my feet stop working, I can no longer walk. If I can't walk, then digestion doesn't work the same anymore. We walk a lot. We're actually walking devices. Well, devices. We are humans, of course, thank goodness, but our main form of movement is walking. It's not standing. Above all, it's not sitting. And this is the worst position. We are made to lie down again, but walking is actually our main task. In addition to thinking, what the head, what the brain does, and so on, walking, when we can't walk anymore, or when walking pain comes into our lives, then the general state of health not only decreases linearly, but exponentially. Then it quickly goes downhill. I said digestion. When we're crouched down like this in old age, then the lungs, the breath can no longer function as well. And the importance of the breath is also clear. We breathe much better when we can walk without pain than when we have to walk in pain because a knee hurts, a hip hurts or something. Pain in general also go to the psyche, and the psyche in turn goes to the internal organs. So it's all very much connected. And if I were asked now, what are the two most important health factors? Then I would say it's the feet first, the health of the feet, and what that means, maybe we'll get there, or we'll definitely get there. Foot health and nutrition. I see it that way too. So back to the foot. If you see a foot like that with all those little bones, then it has a hollow space. And it's actually the case with running that it's always a bit cushioned, isn't it? Springs. Yeah, it springs. It's correct, the way I show it. Yeah, that's a spring, yeah. But when we're in a shoe that's hard and walking on concrete, then the suspension isn't there at all. But that's just a blow. Another blow to the joints each time. Yeah, and then there are even people who sell insoles. so-called orthopedists. They take measurements with cameras, they take measurements and then look. The foot that pronates too much, they call it overpronation. The foot folds inwards. One speaks then of bent, flat, splay foot. There are different foot shapes. But that doesn't do anything at the cause. Yeah, it's bad. Insoles. I'm talking about orthopedic supportive insoles. This really is a huge problem because it robs the feet of the natural function a lot more. After the hard, flat bottom pulls the ground from under your feet, so to speak. The hard, flat ground prevents the natural movement of the feet. With around 30 muscles and around 30 bones, they're made to move, spring, support themselves. Also, the muscles that control the feet, the shin, the calf muscles, and then the top quadriceps, hamstring muscles, and the whole balancing back and abdominal muscles, everything together with the feet is made so that we can be resilient. The body tension is built up, and insoles next to the flat, hard floor are just killing the feet. With every step, it actually gives you a blow, your feet until they're completely dead. If you analyse it carefully, you can see that the retracted foot is a dead foot. It no longer has all these spring mechanisms in it. And that has the consequence that the musculoskeletal system, with back, hips, knees, neck, like you mentioned, it's all starting to hurt. And this has to do with the feet. Of course, also with the diet, but that's not our topic now. But over-acidification through wrong diet, way too much sugar, is probably the greatest poison of all. Probiotic nutrition, healthy intestines, healthy people. There's a saying that is, of course, the other side to the health of the feet, which is also important because if the fluid between the fascia, if it's acidic, then the fascia stick together. Then it happens in a cast, to put it figuratively, over the many years we stiffen because we don't move our feet and because we eat too acidic. Because just when we put an elbow, for example, in a cast for 6 weeks, then it stiffens because we don't have any movement. And there are so many little muscles in our bodies. We have not moved them for 30, 40, 50 years, or moved them less. The range of motion is no longer used. We no longer use the full range of motion. You say, use it or lose it, because it gets blocked, it stiffens. And that's what happens with your feet, because the feet stiffen. They're not completely stiffened, but because they only drop them or additionally block them in insoles, we can no longer do a deep squat. You can try it. Everyone can test how far they can squat down with the entire foot on the ground. And if you don't quite get into the Asiatic squat or deep squat, if you can't quite touch the floor with the sole of your foot, then you are well on your way to stiffening. This has to do with the movement of the feet. So we found a very well-known musician, the gentleman with the harmonica. You know him for sure, Michael Hurt. And Michael Hurt also had big problems with the walking apparatus and with his feet. And we had a little conversation, and I'd like to show that to you. Dear viewers, listen to what he has to say.
Before his musical career, Michael Hurt worked as a truck driver until he had a serious accident in 1991 and was in a coma for 2 months. He has been blind in his right eye since the accident, and his right leg is 4 centimetres shorter than his left. The pain when walking and standing persisted until he discovered the carbon air cushioned shoe.
And then I tried on a pair of shoes, and then I walked back and forth and said, "No, I'm not taking them off anymore. I didn't feel any pain. It didn't hurt anymore, not at all. I can walk in the shoes. And since I've been wearing the shoes, my circulatory problems have all gone. I've always had circulatory problems, thought it was probably from the pain or something. It's all gone. And since then, I've only had these shoes, and I've gotten some of every kind right away. Just awesome, these shoes." Yeah, and I find that incredibly touching. And I can understand that very well since, well, I also experienced it when the foot starts to work again and it's no longer locked in. But the musculoskeletal system can carry out its function. That this function is then also cushioned again. That I personally no longer have back pain. And I have absolutely no problem standing for 8 hours, just standing. My feet don't hurt. And then I keep thinking, what are the many saleswomen doing in retail who are constantly in shoes where the foot locked up again? They must be in pain. Yeah. Well, first to Michael Hurt. I had the pleasure of meeting him personally. And I'd met him 2 or 3 times. It was an accident for him that led to his walking disability, which was a massive walking disability. And then, coincidentally, he was in Germany at one of the dealers who sells our soft, elastic and springy shoes. And he got to know this shoe, and well, that was an instant healing. It was almost like a miracle cure. He can walk on stage again. He can no longer walk on stage. He can walk back and forth. Yeah, this was a new life for him. Such proof that there is a great deal that goes into the health of your feet. It's the power of the feet. So, how good am I at jumping up? I'm not doing it right now. It's high enough. Well, yeah, that's high enough. The power. Then I mentioned mobility, which can only be maintained if your feet really move with every step you take in everyday life. Strength, agility, and the balancing skills that I need on one foot. Even if it wobbles at the bottom, when it's like being on a trampoline, that I can stand on it even when I'm old. And this has nothing to do with age. This is foot health, strength, agility, balance. And especially people who are allowed to work walking all day. And I have to say, because I prefer to work walking than sitting, because sitting is the greatest poison. The chair is a cast for me. You can see with age, people walk as if they had mounted a chair in the back. Then you walk so crooked. But if you, of course, worked in a shop, a fashion store, food store or something, and the floor would be soft, elastic and springy, so a mat or sound where you can walk barefoot, then you would use your job every day to train. Your health, constantly. One could then consider the work, the job itself as a fitness centre. And that would be like a training centre where you train yourself to be healthy. Well, I see it in myself too. We always have 10,000 steps a day here in the studio. And that's a small fitness programme. 10,000, and of course all well and nicely cushioned. But I still have a small picture here, which I'd also like to analyse together with you. Here, you can see again, and it's the same lady. And now I'm just doing this on behalf of Michael Hurt's video, who also had very serious problems walking. But here, you can see that an immediate success is there just by walking on a spring. Yeah, well, this woman has a stiff ankle, but it doesn't matter what the problem is at the musculoskeletal system. When the feet themselves, healthy in a second or two, and within 2 or 3 minutes you walk in a completely different way, with less pain, without pain, the entire musculoskeletal system changes. Now, with her, on the left, you can see her walking in socks. Then she put her shoes on, and this was the same day. It's very similar. You can see that she puts her foot a bit more outward, because the foot already acts a bit like an orthopedic insole. Oh, you can see that here. Yeah, that one goes a bit outwards, and she would have a stronger insole. The foot would go out even more. So beware of insoles. Yeah, exactly. Beware of shoes, one would have to say here. Flat bottom shoes is already worse than in socks. So what we did then, the operation was not done so advantageously. The operation was performed at an acute angle, and that's why we had to add a small wedge outside of our shoe. But here you can see, she then became, a couple of days later after we installed this wedge, and you can see here on the right, she goes completely normal. Symmetrical. She no longer limps. The foot rolls normally. But now for an understanding, when the lady walks like that, and now if we took her to the beach, to the sea, and let her walk in the sand, would she walk like that in the sand? Yeah, she would too. Yeah, exactly. So the extreme sand, so where there is very fine sand, would probably be too much of a good thing for her now, because from no movement suddenly, so much movement it'd just be too much. But there, for example, where the water meets the sand, if it isn't sloping there, that kind of sand, she would walk that way too. Yeah. So I now have 2 cases where there was heavy impairment, but we still have a statement from a ski racer who was world champion in my day, I think, Franz Heinze. And he's already had his experiences with it, and he only uses it to build muscle to train. But now, let's hear what he has to say. Have fun, dear viewers. Yeah, I think it's fundamentally important to do a good, basic build-up, to try to do a lot of training units in a variety of forms. And with the Keyboard, I can, of course, specifically go there and strengthen the foot muscles, intrinsic muscles, and have a preventive effect. Yeah, and I also ask myself, in top-class sport, is it already established these days? Well, it's very well established at FC St. Gallen. It's a Swiss club, Premier League team, and they train every day. They also have treadmills from us with soft elastic material on it, well, for the injured players at least. And every footballer somehow has some problem on the musculoskeletal system, also after the games, regeneration and so forth. It's fully established. That individual, some athletes use it, some don't. It stands and falls very often with the physiotherapists, whether they agree or not. Regeneration is a big issue in top-class sport. Then the therapy. So injured players, ankles, Achilles tendon problems, that costs money. That costs money. And they get fit much faster. We also make mats that are 5 meters long. They then do certain exercises there in order to compensate for muscular imbalances. Top sport is always one-sided. No matter what sport it is, it's always one-sided. And our concept, where the foot can move in all directions, trains the other musculature. So the muscles that are not trained in the specific sport or less trained, they're encouraged there. So, like you do polysportive supplements in top-level sport. Super impressive, of course. Actually, it's very important for everyone, from the top athlete to people who are already in pain, but also for the people who say, I never really want to walk so crooked and painful. I already want to make sure that my musculoskeletal system doesn't wear out, doesn't get worn out, doesn't get an inflamed spot, but simply have a clean walk. And so I want to ask you, what if the people who are watching right now say, I want to test it? What is my further procedure for this? Well, may I add something about wear and tear? Yeah, sure. Well, because the wear and tear is not because of overloading, it's because of incorrect loading. And if the feet are not properly loaded, then other joints have to compensate for what the feet didn't do. So, if the feet aren't able to balance, then it has to be done in the trunk muscles. Then, in the pelvic area, in the hip area, tension can accumulate, especially in the glute muscles. And these are very complex, very huge, two muscles. Tensions can form here. And tensions then produce incorrect loads. And these incorrect loads can leave signs of wear and tear. In the knee area, for example, in the menisci, in the inner meniscus, outer meniscus, depending on the incorrect loading, whether that's more supination, so outwards like bow legs, or knock knees. With a knock knee, it's more likely, now I have to be careful what I say, with bow legs, the inner meniscus, with knock knees, the lateral meniscus is overloaded. Then there is wear and tear. And that's what academic medicine looks at. And then they do an MRI and find arthrosis there. And arthrosis, well, that's a huge concept of fear. And then you have to operate minimally invasively first. You have to flatten the cartilage. You have to do a joint irrigation and so on. And by the way, there are studies that show that smoothing the cartilage and flushing the joints is useless. They don't seem to damage the joint itself. And this has not been examined in detail. But of course, they damage the fascia, which are cut through, and because that forms scars. And nobody talks about the fact that cartilage can be rebuilt. But there are studies And we also have a report on our website with several studies listed. And I could go into detail about why cartilage can be rebuilt. But I also had a third-degree arthrosis, so severe pain with every step. And I can ski over 100 kilometers per hour in a squat again. I can jump down from 2 meters onto hard ground. No pain. It's all gone. Cartilage is back. Cartilage can grow back. You can look it up in our documents, where you can also find the relevant studies. And that is a fallacy. It's a huge fear term with which we obviously have to deal with a lot. So, and this goes as far as that it is the general opinion of people. If I have osteoarthritis, then I have to operate. Yeah, I know that. Well, it's incredible. It's really not the case either. There's another option if it really doesn't help. There are sometimes cases like this. I just met a doctor, Dr. Burghardt. He places gold implants. And this has been established in the animal industry for 40 years. If there are problems, you put very small pieces of gold around the capsule, and the gold releases ions and allows the inflammation to subside. An implant like that, the smallest pieces, like 8 or 9 around it, releases ions for 200 years, and people are pain-free. But there's no lobby behind it either. And I'd like to finish, by going quickly into this picture, because my wife and I tested it. And we said to ourselves, we're going to go hiking, and we'll walk until our feet hurt. And now look, here we have the kilometre routes from our summer vacation, and you can see 18 kilometres, 20, 22, 16, wow, for weeks. And it was like this, our feet didn't hurt despite these distances. But we were just hungry. It was cold sometimes. What shoes did you wear? We put on the hiking boots, the springy hiking boots, and we could walk forever. We never got tired. And when you came out, your foot felt like it was wrapped in cotton. Yeah, that's what our customers also say. For example, in service, in the catering sector, in sales, where you have to stand and walk on hard floors all day long. Then there is the overpressure in the legs, so tired legs in the evening, back pain and so on. And this disappears immediately in almost all cases. And you can see whether that helps you too on our website, where you can try it out. 2 weeks for 30 francs or 25 euros, then you are on the safe side. And most people will get back to us saying, ever since I got these soft, springy Kibunjoya shoes, so trampoline-like, that's an extremely strong, not just a bit, that's an extremely strong trampoline. What you walk on and stand on, I've no more tired legs, no more back pain. Thank you very much, dear Karl. And if the viewers say that they would like to test it now, or at least read more information, how it's structured now, how it works, or this arthrosis study that you said, is there a platform where you can read through it a bit? Yeah, that's on the Kibun site, that's kibun.com, kybun.com. Great, so thank you very much, and thank you for explaining it to us so broadly and simply that everyone can understand. And you too, dear viewers, I can only support that with full enthusiasm, that we're all well advised to grant our feet the freedom that God has also given us. Surely it wasn't in his interest that we put our foot in shoes, forcing it to stop moving and then walking on concrete. That the blows are there, it's all totally unnatural. With corresponding reactions that we all know today, knee pain, hip pain, back pain, joint pain, neck pain, and so on. Everything comes from the feet. And I'm just proud and happy that we're allowed to put the cause in perspective. And if we act here, then the whole effect no longer has to be there. And I wish you the same with all my heart. Good luck, all the best, see you next time.